tight to these illusions. Safer space, a home inside. It's for these reasons I keep moving from place to place, unable to recognize. With intersections and the traces left behind. So if these notions seem confusing, it's 'cause there's pieces I forgot. From time to time I might remove them, and I resequence details, rearrange the plot. But with names and faces that I thought I lost, but I know your crimes, and I know your shame. Can you learn to let this go and walk away? Yeah, I'll tell you all that it's me. Just hit rewind, try another way. Your secrets hit the rafters away.
Good evening and welcome. Tonight's broadcast is brought to you by Quentel the Cryptid. Do you have a secret? It won't be long now, and it is closer than you think. This is how we are meant to remember it, but perhaps not how it happened.
And this is my project. With some help from a few of my friends, I've recently finished something new called Shadowbox. Shadowbox is an album, but it also includes a series of videos and a few other multimedia facets. We documented the process of making this project from beginning to end, and I've assembled all of that into what you're watching now. Most of the video shown here was recorded at some point between the summer of 2019 up until the end of 2020. But before I get into all of that, let me provide some context. I started Quentel the Cryptid in 2011 in Pennsylvania, which is where I'm from originally. And though it has transformed many times over, lots of the characters, ideas, and even some of the songs have been with me for over a decade now.
Searching for a face amongst an expanse so great. Oh yeah, I'm trying.
Working exclusively as a solo act was never my preference, and I've always thought of Quentel the Cryptid as a band that's featured a rotating cast of musicians and visual artists over the years.
A few years into the project, I was living in Japan and Sean hit me up online.
We had an idea that we were going to do a sock puppet skit.
Asking if I could do some remixes.
You know, to play out as a dead body.
Kind of re-molding and sculpting the sounds.
It wasn't scripted, I'll put it that way. It was not written out.
I recorded a lot of material in that early phase and played shows around the East Coast. But my main objective was to start something that could continue to build upon itself and expand over time. And most importantly for me, it wouldn't have to stop.
You said you're on your way back to some place, and olden faces you.
Fast forward a few years. In 2016, I moved to San Francisco, which is where I met Ellie. Ellie and I worked together on all of the visual elements for the project, and our collaborative effort is called WitchCentipede, which is also the name of an entity in one of our ongoing narratives. Together we make animations, all types of videos and shorts, posters, collages, dossier files, and more stuff related to our expanding cast of characters who inhabit the WitchCentipede universe. Ellie also designs and illustrates all of the cover art for my albums, EPs, and singles. The first project we collaborated on was called If You Lived Here, You Would Be Home Now.
We started making promotional materials for it, which very quickly sort of set the pace for how we would make things in the future.
Half of the songs on this album were things that I wrote after moving to the Bay Area, and the other half were older, a collection of things from various earlier work. Though I had recorded and released many full-fledged albums before this point, If You Lived Here marked the start of a new chapter, and I usually now refer to it as my first album. We released the project in November of 2018, and I played a few small shows. About a month later, we impulsively decided to leave San Francisco and move 10 hours north to Portland, Oregon, in the middle of winter. I found a new rehearsal space in Northeast Portland near the airport, and after an adjustment period, started working on some new songs that I decided to record as an EP. By late spring, I was focused on expanding the scale of my live shows and began exploring synchronized visuals for the monitors and projectors that would pair with the songs and sonic interludes. I openly admit that I've always brought entirely too much stuff with me to shows, but it's always been an attempt to present a more immersive experience.
The way you use synthesizers and the way you use television screens and lighting effects and costumes and stuff like that.
The few times I saw it, it always kind of changed.
Still a one-person act, actually kind of a two-person act.
Creating some kind of experience and environment.
Extremely cinematic, all the things he's doing with multimedia.
A Bjork video directed by Tim Burton.
DJs do that, but to be an actor as well as a DJ kind of central hub.
You are where you should be. When the ending comes, don't look away.
That summer, I played wherever I could, literally anywhere with anyone. There were a handful of shows in Washington and Oregon, and even more in Northern California. A tour because there was no reasonable schedule or strategy. I was just sending out unsolicited messages and traveling to any place where someone agreed to have me perform. Some of the shows were great, but looking back, maybe I didn't always fully explain what it was that I did, and I think sometimes it wasn't so well received. But that didn't really matter. I was getting a chance to fine-tune ideas and try things out, and that was what was important. By late summer, the EP was mixed and mastered, and some of the first ideas for songs to include on my next project started materializing. It was also around this time that I began expanding and developing the narrative connected to the WitchCentipede characters. There were a lot of details that I knew intuitively, but I wanted to start writing out the specifics so that it would be easier to translate the story to other mediums.
The story, I'm very intrigued by this WitchCentipede universe. I still don't get it. I pay attention, and I see the recurring characters. I just get the sense that there's these recurring characters that are somehow connected.
We decided to release Away Message, which was the title for the EP, in October that year, and we started planning for a release show that would be hosted by our friends at Red Door in Alameda. The scale of the show was significantly more elaborate than anything we had done previously, and it was our first attempt at creating a fully immersive multimedia experience. We brought pretty much everything that we had made throughout the year in Portland and arranged it into the space. One of the most interesting parts about a show at Red Door is that there's no roof, so everything needs to be set up the day of. As we were preparing for the show, we decided that it would probably be best to move back to California, and I was talking about Sacramento a lot. This idea ended up being pretty short-lived, though there was one exception. I briefly rented a storage unit in Sacramento, where I took everything after the Red Door show. This didn't really make any sense, as I ended up in the East Bay, so I'll just call this a lapse in judgment. I was scheduled to play another event the following weekend at Studio 23, one of the neighboring galleries in Alameda.
Back. That was Quentel the Cryptid with Away Message. Nice. You like that. Very nice.
I'll listen to more.
So
I'm sure you'll see him around.
Cool.
There's a striking presence.
You have to draw me a picture of him so I know. So I'll just go around and be like, you might be him.
After the conclusion of the shows in October, we changed gears and started working on a new project right away. I had a very specific idea for the environment that the new stuff would occupy. Something based on state fairs and festivals from my childhood on the East Coast, at least the way that I remember them now. We attempted to recreate real places for the artwork on previous albums, but I liked the idea that this would be someplace fictional, based on memories. There was a Ferris wheel. There were 3 balloons tied together on a fence post. I think sometimes when you have a name for something early on, it can inform the direction a project takes. What you call something matters, and we landed on Shadowbox before November. Ellie decided to stay in Portland for the time being. I found a temporary living space in Antioch, and we continued working by sending files back and forth, and occasionally making the 10-hour drive. I found another rehearsal space and continued working on the songs that I had started in Portland. Unlike some of my other recent projects, which had repurposed things from my back catalog, I knew that I wanted to write all new material for this album. I recorded a lot of sounds and video at a nearby park that winter. There's a very specific look to the plants and wildlife in that area, and it was vastly different from places that I had lived before. Amongst other things, a lot of my ideas for songs and videos at the time came from that place. We borrowed a lot of those natural elements as we continued to fine-tune the overall look of the new project.
Wanted to see if the idea of a rotoscope video would even work.
Maybe we start from the other way and then watch it, but that's not going to look right.
I wanted to test the first 6 seconds of it to get it where I wouldn't have to be drawing 30 drawings for every single second. We were experimenting with other frame rates. That was the beginning of figuring out what looked right and how long it would take. I started to think about shadows and shadow box and thinking about doing things in real time and what the possibilities were with using objects in real life. And it started with essentially paper marionette type structures. Then we started using paper cutouts to cast shadows on walls and stuff like that. So I would draw out the characters, cut them out, and we would record that. And we were talking about making more puppets for each of the characters and doing a music video for it. Like we thought, okay, we'll do like a Winchester one and an Oh No God one. And then Sean would be like, can you do this character too? I don't consider myself a sculptor because I pretty much strictly worked with 2D medium up to this point. And then suddenly I found myself having to totally recapture the likenesses of all these different characters.
I had about 20 new songs that I was considering for the new album at one point, though I eventually narrowed it down to 9. My songs tend to run on the longer side, and I wanted to keep the track list relatively short and make a concise, cohesive statement. I wanted the material to have more of a live feeling too, so I rehearsed the songs pretty much non-stop for months, trying to work out different nuances and details like I used to do with a band. Though all of the songs were new, I did rework a few melodic ideas that had been left unused for a long time. These parts were things that I always wanted to make the most of somehow, so I made some changes and spliced them into my new songs. The new songs made their way into my live set, and I played them at shows that winter. We started doing regular Second Friday shows hosted by our friends at Ale Industries in Oakland, which featured work and performances from other artists and musicians in the area as well. In addition to the new songs and visuals, Ellie and I had been working on the first edition of a new zine related to the WitchCentipede narrative. It was meant to function as a prototype for a longer work, a means to test out different ideas, styles, and formats to see how they would translate. It made use of augmented reality features, which is something we had been experimenting with for a few months at that point. We figured the next Second Friday show would be a good opportunity to start sharing the zine. This brings us to March.
Was it a one-off or it's a continuing series?
The zine?
Yeah. This is an augmented reality zine. I mean, full color. They got this whole lore behind their music.
If we go to one of the pages that has the eye in the bottom corner, you'll see that this loads up there. And that actually,
so it loads.
It plays a video, almost like animates the page in a way.
Right. So that one's just a video clip, but there's others. I know nobody else can see this.
Yeah.
How easy to maybe we can do that.
Yeah, that looks great.
So.
I've seen characters in the illustrations and videos. How much does the story of those characters overlap into the songs?
Not at all.
Really?
No.
That's not what
I will admit that my initial reaction was skepticism, and it wasn't immediately apparent how much everything was about to change. So the songs are kind of their own thing, and the videos are the characters, and the narrative, that's its own thing too. No, the songs aren't connected to the narrative that way. It's kind of like two separate facets of the same project. Maybe we should have canceled the show, but I'm glad we didn't.
Got a question. Favorite city or venue to play?
We have two now, Red Door in Alameda and Ale Industries in Oakland. It definitely wasn't the turnout we had hoped for, but given the circumstances, I was glad that anyone showed up at all. Unknown to us then, we had our last show for a long time to come on Friday the 13th. The night shelter-in-place went into effect in the Bay Area.
Thank you so much for being here amongst the bullshit.
Does anyone want to film?
Does anybody want to film?
at 5 p.m., there were a total of 273 cases of COVID-19 across our 7 jurisdictions. Today, we stand together to announce additional legal orders that will apply to all 7 jurisdictions, covering Silicon Valley and the core of the Bay Area region. These new orders direct all individuals to shelter at their place of residence.
It goes without saying, but the following days and weeks marked the beginning of a very strange period of time. I reluctantly canceled all of my upcoming shows, the schedule for which was starting to resemble the one from the previous summer. I'm pretty adamant about playing new material in front of an audience repeatedly before committing to a final version of something. You get to see what works and what doesn't, and oftentimes I come up with new ways of playing the material in the context of a performance. I had decided on a track list for the new album, but some of the songs still needed to go through that phase. So I did what we all started doing. Live streams. I decided the best thing that I could do in this situation was come up with a new show every 2 weeks. It gave me the opportunity to try out new songs in front of people, but even more so, I started adding things to the overall presentation that I had never tried before. Ellie had been making puppet versions of the characters to include in a music video that we had been planning for a few months. Most of the puppets were in Portland, but I had a few with me at the studio. I started experimenting with video interludes between songs that attempted to portray a connection between my actions on stage and the visuals on the screen. This allowed me to collage older footage alongside new visuals and start to work the story of the characters into the live show. I pulled different scenarios out of the zine and various parts of the narrative. The characters could speak through distorted voices, subtitles on the screen, and via simulated phone calls. As it seemed we suddenly had more time to work with, the endeavor we set out on started to become something a lot more elaborate.
Are there any more details as far as the bigger projects?
The puppets, there's still 3 more, I think, I need to make.
I won't call it a problem, but I've always felt a compulsion to expand the scope of any given project and try to make something more immersive out of it. I get completely fixated on this.
The next album is going to be printed full CD again, so that means I have the inside spread to do, CD design, a front cover, back cover, and then there's going to be some singles we're releasing too. I've already completed one of those.
Every song would have a painting. There would be 2 singles, both with music videos. The first would feature live action puppets. The second would be fully animated, using a technique called rotoscope. I would make a documentary style video that attempted to explain what we did and how we did it. There would be a companion zine that expanded on the existing narrative and related directly to themes within the songs. Oh, and there would be an album.
If you've seen this, forget that you saw it. If you cannot forget, turn yourself in immediately.
I was hoping for an opportunity to work together with Vantana Row for some time. They were one of the first bands I discovered upon moving to the Bay Area and quickly became a source of inspiration. Their music speaks for itself, but their presentation was unlike anything I had seen before. We were eventually connected by a mutual friend, Adam, at a show in San Francisco featuring one of his bands, Narboots. Adam had stumbled upon one of my shows in Alameda back in 2018, and we had subsequently become friends.
I saw a clock with baby heads on it, and a mannequin with a scary mask. I thought to myself, this will either be the best show ever or the worst show ever.
He introduced us to Jamie and Bolly, and we did a few shows together over the next year or so. Jamie agreed to play drums on the album and recorded those parts at the Vantana Row studio.
And then it goes like this.
Yeah. I had already recorded a lot of the synth and auxiliary parts at my personal studio. But I wanted to track the guitars and vocals elsewhere. By the end of spring, I booked some time at District in San Jose and recorded those parts with Ryan Paris, who also mixed the project.
Some distant voice in the dark. It's unfamiliar and faceless. We've been trying to reach you, but can't find your location. So are you coming or not? I'll never live to reach
where it starts to pick up a little bit. Right? Something like that. It kind of reminds me of Foo Fighters a little bit, but... Fucking shit, dude.
Just from where that synth lead is coming in. Okay. Although, probably won't. Yeah. Summer was approaching, and the album was recorded. Ellie was preparing to move back to California, as we had found a new place to live. At this point, we shifted gears and started preparing for the music videos. So for the last 3 weeks, I've been in here gluing sticks and rocks for the video that we're going to shoot next week. We built this stage, so the idea is that somebody's going to be under there. These are the panels for the ground cover. There's 3 different sets of those. And there's telephone poles with the flyers on them. I think we're gonna animate those. This is a mirror box. It fills up with fog. The clock is gonna hang on this tree. These are meant to be barrels, like a wall of barrels in this particular place in Oregon. This is a giant ball of gum, and the screen in the back is gonna be for animated backdrops.
let's try again. Okay, now you're close.
Hey, this is Sean from Quentel the Cryptid. Up next is the premiere of our new video, Blue Flowers. Thanks for tuning in to Star Crash, and don't forget to make a donation to help support DNA Lounge. Unlike the previous video, which was shot in 2 days, the video for Ghost Trap was shot over 8 months. Once everything was edited and sequenced, I broke each shot into individual frames so that Ellie could begin the animation.
I took all of the frames and I copied them and dropped them in here, and then tucked them behind the hill. And then once they were behind the hill, I arranged them in the order in which they needed to open. Numbering for each one so I can keep track.
Is there an actual cow?
Maybe. The same color purple over top everything, so to keep it unified. Then posterize, usually between 60-70%, and then I would start doing the line work. So I would use the base of the photos and then warp things to the colors that I wanted them to be.
No time like the present, and no words left to say. I'm alive and existent. This is my time and my place. So you taught me a lesson.
Okay. Yep. Over to your left 1 foot.
After putting all of the frames back together, the last step was to process the colors one more time.
day started like any other. The letters went out. Transmissions were received, and the machinery buzzed and hissed for hours. As you reached for your mask to hide the glowing void that has become your only true face, something was different. You thought to yourself, maybe it's time to leave. And so you left. Out the door and down the hall, across the vast wasteland, towards the overgrowth. For days and years you continue onward, bound to all your fixations and illusions, questioning the vast array of corridors ahead, often wondering, have I been here before? This is the version of the story you have chosen. For all that you could have been, this is what you are. There is a whisper on the wind, a puzzle, or maybe just a recollection. You ask yourself, are my thoughts useful? The silence envelops you before you can respond. A distant voice in the dark, unfamiliar and faceless, an unanswered question. Perhaps a conclusion. There is only the sound of a deep wind. It is accompanied by a thought. Maybe it's time to leave. This is brought to you by Quentel, the Cryptid. Do you have a secret? It won't be long now, and it is closer than you think. This is how we are meant to remember it, or perhaps not how it happened.
Welcome, Star Crash, and I'm here to introduce Quentel the Cryptid.
That was Ghost Trap by Quentel the Cryptid. They're coming out with a new album pretty soon, I believe in December.
Sometimes the most challenging part of a project is letting go and accepting that it's finished. We had put nearly a year and a half of our lives into Shadowbox. I could have easily continued to add things and make endless adjustments, and trust me, I considered it. But it became clear to us that we had nearly arrived at a state of completion, and it was almost time to move on. We knew from the beginning that we wanted to present everything together, each individual facet as a part of something greater. It was a bunch of different things, songs, video, illustrations, but it was also a singular idea, and it was important to present it that way. At the beginning of the year, before everything that followed, I imagined having a show at the end of all this where we could actually build parts of the Shadowbox world, like the fence and the trees, even parts of the carnival. And maybe I'll still get a chance to do that someday, but obviously as it stands now, it won't be safe to have events like that anytime soon. I don't know when that will change, but I know that by the time it does, we'll be working on the next thing. Or maybe the thing after that. There were a lot of things about this past year that didn't go exactly according to plan, but I'm grateful to have had the time to see this project through and to exist in a world where it's still easy to share things remotely. And that's really what it's about. The process of discovering ideas, translating them through a medium, and eventually making something that other people can experience with you is something that just never gets old. And so I guess I'm ending this here. Not really because it's the conclusion of anything, but because it brings us to the present.
This is Shadowbox, a project by Quentel the Cryptid. Some things within these pages are hidden. To find them, download this and look for this. Your copy of the album includes a download code that can be redeemed through Bandcamp. Shadowbox includes a series of videos, which are accessible at the following links. We hope this reaches you in time.